Hey, this is Paul from Make Use Of, and for the past week I've been testing out Samsung's latest 65-inch 4K TV, the QN90B. It provides punchy blacks with minimal glare, even in the sunniest and brightest rooms. If you prioritize picture quality in all lighting conditions and don't mind the rather steep asking price of about $2,600, the QN90B with its Neo QLED panel is a sleek TV that leaves little to be desired. Not only is this one of Samsung's best 4K TVs, this is one of the best 4K TVs you can get on the market right now. And when compared side by side with my old budget Hisense TV, there's really no comparison. Throughout this review, I will be giving you a couple side-by-side comparisons between the two TVs. They're both 65 inches. Of course, these are nowhere close to being an apples-to-apples comparison, but it really makes you appreciate the significantly better panel, build quality, powerful speakers, and the additional features that Samsung has managed to pack into this more elegant and smaller body. Whether you're considering a new TV for a room or you're upgrading from an older one, even a similar or identical size 4K model, you'll easily notice the difference. And this has been a pretty unique experience for myself because it's not often that you get to have two very different yet very similar TVs in your home in a realistic viewing experience to actually test them side by side and see how they compare for your kind of content and your kind of gaming. This TV packs a lot of impressive specs, and if you have the budget for it, you're gonna get an incredible experience, not only for streaming content, but also for 4K 120Hz gaming. Samsung's latest QN90 models use Neo QLED quantum matrix technology, which are mini LEDs 40 times smaller than traditional LEDs. According to their site, these use a vast array of tiny light cells using exclusive mini LED design technology for hyper-focused brightness and dimming in all the right areas. This should help deliver better HDR content with deeper blacks, better highlights, and details. Interestingly, as with their previous models, Dolby Vision is still missing, which limits you to just HDR10 with Netflix. However, it does still support HDR10 Plus Adaptive and HDR10 Plus Gaming. All this to say, even if you're coming from a similar sized 65-inch TV like I am, that's also 4K and offers 120 Hz, there are some very big improvements. Many of its smart features and modes are powered by the Neo Quantum Processor 4K, which helps upscale content to 4K more effectively, giving you a sharper image overall. Also impressive is that this Samsung packs in a lot of gaming-focused features. Their game bar can be used to display your current frames per second, as well as the variable refresh rate. The QN90B has a largely unchanged design that's been seen on their previous models, but that's not a bad thing. Its bezels are extremely thin, measuring about 0.19 inches all around, including at the bottom where other manufacturers tend to make their TVs thicker in order to house important components. With its nearly zero gap and flush finish, the bezels almost perfectly blend in with the borders of the panel. The Samsung logo and IR receiver are housed in a small bump located on the far right side of the TV. It somewhat takes away from Samsung's perfectly clean design, and if you're OCD about symmetry, it might raise a hair. And it's actually got a button hidden at the bottom here that when you click it, gives you all these other options, your power, channel, volume settings, and your source. And for a single button setup, it's actually relatively easy to use. All you have to do is select the option that you want. So for example, volume. So after clicking it, I'll then hold, and then it'll increase the volume there. I can also do this with my sources too. In addition to the TV being extremely thin, Samsung has gone the extra mile by adding cable management on the back. This was an effective way to hide the power cord, which plugs directly on the right side of the TV and runs across the back wall to an outlet located on the left side. It can also be used for thinner or flat HDMI or audio cables. Not unlike other TVs or monitors, an HDMI cable is not included in the box, but what you do get instead is a really nice stand. It installs really easily, but of course it's recommended that two people do it together to avoid damage to the front of the panel. Included in the box are the stand, a plastic attachment that goes directly on the back of the TV, and a total of 8 Phillips head screws. You first attach the plastic piece at the back of the TV, and then with the base placed in the desired location, the TV is lifted and carefully dropped onto the stand. With the plastic attachment properly slid over the stand, one person can then install the screws, which hold the two pieces together. Fully attached, it looks very similar to an iMac stand, however it is rigid and does not give you any movement for adjusting viewing angles. It's surprisingly one of the more impressive parts of this setup, not only because because of its build quality, but because of its small form factor, which allows it to fit on smaller surfaces like this bookshelf here, whereas if you had those more traditional feet that are usually found on other TVs, it definitely wouldn't be able to fit on this stand. In the past, I generally haven't been that big of a fan of Samsung's remotes. However, this one is definitely a lot better. It's really slim, modern, it fits really nice in the hand, and all your buttons are easily accessible on the remote without having to move your hand around a lot. That said, because of its slim and long design, it might not be the most ergonomic to hold for smaller hands. Interestingly, for such a premium TV, it's odd that this remote lacks any kind of backlight, making this somewhat difficult to use in the dark. On the bright side though, the remote has two very unique features. The first is that it has a solar panel on the backside which recharges the remote when exposed to sunlight. Another great and probably more used feature is the USB-C charging. The remote also has a built-in microphone. When you press and hold the dedicated input button, you can trigger your chosen smart assistant, Bixby, Alexa, or Google Assistant, to control the TV, search for content, or do any of their other usual tasks that they handle. Ask questions, set reminders, adjust your thermostat, etc. So by pressing and holding the microphone button there, what time is it?
It's 10:10 p.m.
So you have Google Assistant like that, but if paired with your account, you can also control your smart home as well. Turn on the kitchen lights.
Okay, turning 2 lights on.
Turn off the kitchen lights. I would say compared to Roku, Samsung does a better job at giving you all your content on one screen. So if you have Amazon Prime, Netflix, and a bunch of other apps, you can actually see them on here once you sign in. You can also sort by bookmarks if you have any. For example, I'm signed into Amazon Prime, I can see some of the latest shows that I've been watching on here. The smart features are powered by the Samsung Tizen operating system, very similar to all the other past Samsungs that we've seen. Multi-view is also one of the best features on this TV. There's a dedicated button at the top right of the remote. Pressing it once brings up your options. You can see the recent things that you've done in multi-view. So for example, I had the browser and YouTube, and in just a moment, it'll pull it up. So that's really convenient. And then the other great thing is on this screen, you can actually switch between the two, and you can actually, when hovering above the other app, you can tell it which one you want to be bigger and which one you want the audio source to be coming from. You can actually listen to both sources at the same time or individually. And if you want both sources to be the same size, that's how it'll look. Picture quality on the Samsung QN90B is spectacular to say the least. For those who just want their TV to look great out of the box, the Samsung's Auto Smart Picture mode will do the job without looking overly sharp, saturated, or too contrasty. While compared to OLEDs, the blacks won't be as dark. The benefit of this being a QLED means that the picture can get much, much brighter in comparison. Again, if you're planning on using this TV in a room with lots of light, the extra brightness will be noticeable. Combine that brightness with its anti-reflective properties and you can enjoy rich content even on the sunniest days with minimal glare. This was one of the most noticeable differences between the QN90B and my old Hisense TV. I also found the 4K upscaling to be much more effective than I was used to with the Hisense. You'd be forgiven for thinking that HD content would look the same on pretty much any 4K TV, but the difference that a good upscaling engine can make is profound. Text looks more crisp and soft and less refined edges are sharper. I tried out a couple Xbox Series X and PS5 games to see how well the TV performed for gaming. 4K 120Hz is great for games like Forza 5, Halo Infinite, and Uncharted. Turning on your console, for example, the Xbox Series X, it'll automatically switch to that input. And then once that powers up, pressing and holding your play pause button brings up the game bar or game mode, which actually tells you some important information. For example, your input lag, your picture mode. You can't change screen ratio. That's an option that's available on PC if you want that extra wide aspect ratio. But the other important things that it shows is your FPS, if HDR is enabled, and what kind of variable refresh rate is on. Since all 4 of the HDMI ports support 4K 120, you can connect several compatible devices without needing an external AV receiver or juggling HDMI cables. Game mode is also automatically applied to the input. One of its standout gaming features is FreeSync Premium Pro, which helps reduce stuttering and screen tearing. And so if you're in the market for a 4K TV that provides vibrant and sharp HDR content for streaming, as well as 120Hz gaming, there's really nothing that beats it right now, especially if you plan on using it in mixed environments like this. The Samsung QN90B does cost a premium, but for a lot of users, it's definitely worth it. Thanks again for watching this video. This has been Paul with Make Use Of. We'll catch you in the next one.